What made the light bulb go off for me wasn't learning about crypto, it was learning about fiat currency. By learning about crypto, it made me understand how the US dollar works, in particular about government money printing and how money printing causes price inflation, and that to control the money, control the world, fix the money, fix the world.
This podcast is sponsored by Coin ATM Radar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With Coin ATM Radar, you could find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies for cash. On their website, you can search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying, and you can also search by geo area, country, state, city. You can also check and compare actual current fees at different ATMs. If you want to find out more, head over to coinatmradar.com, which is coinatmradar.com. Hey everyone, I have the fantastic pleasure of speaking with the one and only gentleman James of iYield. How's it going, man?
I'm good, gentleman Joel. Thanks for having me. I've wanted to come on for a long time. I've been watching for several years, from back when you used to do the pod with Mark Mason. And who was that Dash guy who had the AK-47 in the background?
Oh, yeah. Mastermind. Yeah,
Mastermind,
I keep mine in the other room, though. It's not always. It scares the Europeans.
Yeah, I've been watching since the Mastermind and Mac and the Dash days. I remember your sessions with it was the Dash Core CEO and Mark Mason. He had the beef with Mark Mason. You had both of them. Right, Ryan Taylor. Sorry.
Which, by the way, for the viewers at home who maybe don't know the whole history thing. So back in 2017, I went on a radio show called Free Talk Live and did some sort of chatted about Dash and stuff back then. And then some troll called in. It was a call-in show, like a old school radio show, and started like talking smack. And then someone else who I worked with called in, and then just that kind of gave the vibe of we should start a podcast. So under the Dash Force brand, there was a weekly podcast that we did for like roughly from 2017 to 2019. And then we sort of dissolved Dash Force, and from all of 2020, 21, 22, and 23, I kind of went, freelance, did other stuff. But I did not want to let that show go. So I started this channel that you're watching. The entire motivation for starting it was to continue that show. And so I just continued on the Dash podcast. But then I started doing other stuff, other interviews, other projects, everything. And that's where we are today. So that's where some of that nostalgia comes. So this channel has been around almost 5 years, but it dates way back before then if you want to count other stuff.
I used to always join the after party, and with my time difference, I missed the actual podcast. And I'd come into the after party maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours into the after party. And I'd come thinking we're going to talk about Dash, but because you'd already been talking about Dash for 2 hours, it was always about like aliens or guns or
yes, or certain topical ointments, but that's a topic for a different show. So now that we kind of went into this little bit of backstory, why don't you tell everyone like who you are and how you got into crypto?
Yeah, happy to. I've been all in crypto since 2013. And we could discuss different levels of all in crypto because all my income's been in crypto and all my savings has been in crypto since 2013. And then I do sell crypto.
Are you just here to make me look ridiculous? Like, my one thing that people know me for, it's like, nah, I've been doing it for like 2 years before. It's like, yeah, but that is very impressive.
I'm saying you do it more hardcore than me, better than me. I sell crypto for fiat to pay my expenses, my living costs. That's what I'm saying is the different. You stay all in crypto, and to spend, you only spend crypto, right? Last time I followed you.
Yeah.
So yeah, because for most people I just say all in crypto, but you could actually correct me and say, James, you're not actually all in crypto. I am. So 2013, I was living in Thailand. I was roommates with some poker professionals, and they were really early adopters of Bitcoin because poker had just been made illegal in the States. So there was these like poker professional communities popped up around the world of we call them poker refugees. Like there's a big community in Costa Rica, in Mexico, and in Thailand, in Phuket, where I was. So it was a nightmare for them to get money between their US bank accounts, their online poker accounts, which are in some offshore island, and to get money in their hands in Thailand or into the Thai bank accounts. It was all a big pain point for them. So they were early adopters of Bitcoin, and I just thought these guys are morons. They're going to get they're going to lose all their money. They're getting scammed by this online pump and dump thing. It's just I thought that it was just something made to make the founder get rich quick scheme for the founder, and Satoshi was going to rug everyone somehow.
Yeah.
That was my first reaction. But as happens with most of us, the first couple of times I looked into it, I didn't do anything. But what made the light bulb go off for me wasn't learning about crypto; it was learning about fiat currency. So,
as one does.
Yeah. By learning about crypto, it made me understand how the US dollar works, in particular about government money printing, and how money printing causes price inflation, and that to control the money, control the world, fix the money, fix the world. And in this time, it was really only Bitcoin. But I fully went into the philosophy and the community and the politics and the technology. I went to every conference I could. I read everything I could. I spent several hours just watching Antonio Antonopoulos rah us all up. And I made a blog, and it was successful. And the cool thing about that was the income from the blog was in crypto.
Yeah.
So I was earning crypto. I didn't have to buy crypto. I was just earning crypto, and then got into Dash was where I came across you guys. So I got into Dash literally at the rebrand from Darkcoin to Dash.
Interesting.
Seeing that story was what made me look into it further, and then I watched Amanda's videos, and that got me into Dash. And mixed emotions, because I would have a lot more purchasing power if I never got into Dash. I think I rode it from number 4 on CoinMarketCap down to its current 170. I rode it. I don't have masternodes anymore, but most of that time, I was an early masternode holder. I had masternodes most of that time. I just eventually I kind of got bored of the blogging, so I sold the blog, and then I had my masternodes making crypto on crypto returns, and I was no longer making any money from the blog because I sold it, and I wanted to do more of that crypto on crypto returns, what we now call DeFi. But DeFi didn't exist at the time, so I looked for things like that, and Dash Masternodes is such a pioneer. And it's kind of funny how like Ethereum maxis think they invented the incentivized node or something with the Ethereum validators. And it's literally Dash Masternode. I mean, Dash Masternodes are even better in a lot of ways, but the market doesn't think so. So just with that, I started looking at things like Thorchain, and things like Ethereum validators, and I still have my Dash Masternodes. So I was looking at these different ways on getting crypto and crypto returns, and that's what led me to start iYield. But I'll stop there in case I'm going on for too long.
Yeah, so I have heard there's a lot of similar stories, I would say, actually, that I've come across. Some, if you remember Unchained from back in the day, another pseudonymous persona who he also didn't have a bank account, was living all off of crypto, although, selling for fiat and things like that. And he, as far as I know, that's what really got him into the whole like Dash concept, was the idea of yield, of being able to live off of yield, and then he became a big Thorchain person. I don't remember exactly when, but early on, like the ChaosNet days. And it is kind of funny about how like this is something with a lot of like centralized companies have a thing that they do, and they know what their customers are there for largely. Whereas with some of these decentralized protocols, when you get these things, sometimes you don't know why people are in. Sometimes you're like, you think it's for one thing and you think it's for another. And that kind of also tracks back to Bitcoin, where written everywhere was peer-to-peer electronic cash system, was, chancellor on the, verge of bailout for the banks, was like all this stuff. And it turns out that the digitally scarce sound money aspect was what really stuck with people. And then now it seems like Bitcoin's entire use case, that almost no one is choosing it because of transfer properties. It's almost always because of that provable digital scarcity kind of thing. So it is kind of interesting to see kind of like the waves of like a lot of people's stories sort of rhyme. And so that took you.
That's something I missed in the backstory. Is I was on the losing side of the Bitcoin block size war. I really wanted to. I didn't want to. I was going to say I wanted to scale through bigger blocks. I wanted to scale Bitcoin through every possible scaling.
Yeah.
Bigger blocks being one of them that was available to us, and that's what made me get out of Bitcoin and into Dash and then Ethereum and different things.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we'll definitely should circle back to that point more towards the end, because it is a kind of interesting epilogue that has a lot of bearance on today, the way where everything is today. So you go to iYield. So first of all, before we go into that, was that something that was just, oh, I need something like this, might as well do a company out of it? Were you seeking to start a company? Like, how did that end up happening?
It was just for me. So I had, this yield coming from Thorchain, yield coming from Dash masternodes, yield coming from Ethereum validators. It was before withdrawals, but you could still deposit into a validator. And it was a real pain in the neck to keep track of things and compare things. And I still had Bitcoin in some addresses, and I was trying different things. So, it was getting complicated and time consuming to keep track of it. So I made a spreadsheet, but added automation to the spreadsheet. Me and a developer I was working with. So we would, the spreadsheet would pull in prices, but I would still have to update the amounts. Or we could make the spreadsheet pull in amounts through an intermediary step that we could have built, but we realized that it should just be a web interface. And then when we started building that, we thought, this could be useful for all the Dash masternode holders and all the Thorchain liquidity providers and all the Ethereum validator owners. So we thought, let's make this a public thing. But it's free. It's always been free. It started out as just something that I needed personally.
Yeah, and it seems like a common theme about people who create good crypto projects. I think that there's a lot of companies and stuff that people try to find like a product market fit somewhere, and then they're trying to start a business, they're trying to earn money or whatever. And some of the better ones, and I've noticed, have been from, I guess, like the founder's personal use case. They're knee deep in the project, and in the actual end user product. As a example, a friend of mine who runs Spritz Finance, it's a crypto bill pay solution that's mostly U.S. focused, but works around the world. And basically, he got rig into DeFi, got in gains, and then off-ramping his gains was just a big pain in the ass. And so he basically made something so you could just off-ramp your gains directly for the bills you needed to pay. And he's like, oh, I should make money at this. So then he starts a company. And so it's kind of the same type of the thing of like the founder that wants this thing, is like, I'll do it myself,
Yeah, but it's certainly no guarantee though, because it's still an open question how many other people there are in the same situation as you. Like the dirty secret of DeFi is that there's very few users. So if you need something in DeFi, it doesn't mean there's a big enough community to sustain the same thing, but it's certainly worth a try.
So what do you mean by very few users? I'm not really very deep into the DeFi world. I'm much more into like the front end of that, which is like the cross-chain swapping of stuff like Thorchain and, but like you say does that mean there's very few people who are like providing liquidity for things or earning or things like that? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's just what I've heard and what I've observed looking around. I mean, one of the biggest projects right now is EtherFi. Their founder, I forget his last name. Pretty sure his name is Michael, or Mike, goes by Mike. He estimated there's like a few 100,000 real DeFi users, and that basically everything's run in support of the whales. Basically, the whales provide enough liquidity for everything, but there's very few users below the whales, and the successful DeFi projects live off like the top 100 users only kind of thing. I mean, there's a great follow on X called Gwert,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got when I was at the token 2049, I think he tweeted, attendees plan to take the afternoon off to improve their apps for their users until they realize they didn't have any. There's when you go to these conferences, most projects seem to have more staff than users.
Yeah, I mean, there is like there is real element to that for sure. And I noticed, for example, Kujira is a project in the Cosmos ecosystem. I'm only really familiar with them because they were supported by the Maya protocol, and they ended up having a pretty bad issue because there wasn't enough, I guess, liquidity in the ecosystem. So the core team was bootstrapping it by leveraging the ops fund. And then, so they ended up just getting completely wrecked and unable to continue. And then to get bailed out by JP, the Thorchain founder, who is now, he's now folding. I'm very murky on the details towards the end of this, but as far as I know, they're sort of shutting down the Kujira chain and folding it into an apps layer of Thorchain or something like that. So, but the point is, like, as you mentioned, not very many users.
Yeah, even Thorchain might have 100 whales who give the appearance of, or not the appearance, the 100 whales give a lot of liquidity, but there's very few people, transacting beneath it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a minnow, like a very small minnow, like a, half a month's paycheck kind of a minnow or whatever. But, it is kind of funny because I know a lot of people in crypto, and in some cases, it's a very small ecosystem. So as far as the spending of digital cash, for example, I understand why that's small because it's hard and the rewards are very ethereal, pun intended, right? For most people who aren't really stuck in a forcibly unbanked situation. But for DeFi, I'd expect that to be different, right? Because DeFi pays you money. Everyone wants free money. And why would you think, I should say, that in DeFi there's so few users? Is it like a knowledge and complexity gap? Is it something else? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, one part of that is that motivation you mentioned applies most directly to stablecoins. And me personally, having kind of done very well on the volatility of holding non-stable cryptos, I'm just not interested in stablecoins.
Yeah.
So that's not the part of the ecosystem which I look into. And probably the majority of DeFi is around stablecoins. So why not more users? Well, there are a lot of whales. Why not more small users? The user experience is really difficult, to put it politely. I mean, even the fact that in Ethereum, you have to make 2 transactions to make 1 transaction. You first have to approve that token. If you have to approve that token to be spent, and then you have to spend it in a second transaction. And most DeFi apps don't even give you an interface that steps you through the process. It'll just the screen will just, you'll do the first one, and then the screen will just be what it already was, and it's waiting for you to do the second one. But it doesn't even tell you you have performed one of 2 transactions. Now perform the second. the user experience is so bad and so clunky. And the fragmentation and the scams, and I mean, I don't want to sound too negative, but it's because the problems are well known. Like the user experience is very bad. A lot of people are turned off by the volatility. A lot of people find it too technically difficult, too much responsibility in terms of holding your own keys. These yields we talk about, they tend to be very volatile and variable. There's most yields that are on the high side sometimes actually go up and down. Like I'm providing liquidity in Pendle right now, and I was getting 9%, and it's just overnight it's just gone down to 3% on the yield on my liquidity pool. So that doesn't appeal to too many normies.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's definitely a big rabbit hole on that. Before we derail, it just talk purely fun stuff on that kind of stuff, because I have a lot of follow-ups to that point. Let's sort of let's sort of dive into iYield a little bit more. So iYield is a company that lets you track everything, track your yields across a wide variety of crypto assets and things. So first of all, what's the revenue model for a tracking thing like this? You charge a premium service, correct?
So let me go back to basics a little bit. iYield is crypto's first financial planning tool. So most people are familiar with crypto portfolio trackers like DBank or what have you. Now, generally, those tools, they just track the value of your assets, right? But that's not your whole picture. You also, for your finances, you need to have your assets, your debts, your incomes, and your expenses. Those are the four pillars of personal finance, and iYield supports all of that. So we don't just tell you the value of your assets. We also support debts, incomes, and expenses. And one really cool part of that is we automatically get your DeFi income, or DeFi or staking kind of income. So like on DBank, you put your Ethereum address in, and it will tell you have 3 validators, and that's worth 96 Ethereum. But we'll tell you that, and we'll tell you that you're making 0.8 Ethereum per month off that, or whatever it may be. We'll tell you the APY. We support about 40 odd DeFi and StakeFi protocols. We support Dash masternodes. On the token side, we support everything on CoinMarketCap, which is about 16,000 tokens and growing.
Damn.
And we support across 16 blockchains. So we'll actually give you the full picture, your full financial situation, your net worth, and your budget, kind of your savings rate, or your cash flow, you might call it. So and we have projection tools and more things like that. So you asked about the revenue model. Yeah, we have there's a free version and a pro version. The free version is more than enough for almost everyone. For every normal individual just using it for themselves, the free version is more than enough. We just have the pro version in case anyone wants to use the product in a way that's different than what we intended. So we just have much higher limits that most people would never get to. Like I said, the product's made for me. I'm a DeFi whale with fingers in all different pies, and the free version's more than enough for me. Like I said, we didn't really I didn't make the product to make money. I made it because I needed it, and because I was bored after I sold my blog. So I wanted to do something in crypto and kind of get back into the cut and thrust and start talking with people like you again, and start going to conferences and getting involved in the crypto ecosystem. That's kind of why it exists.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like it's a great excuse to just have a blog again.
I should start
full-time content creator.
Well, if you go to iYield.com, there is a blog.
Yeah, well, it does seem like I'm sure a lot of crypto founders kind of use their company as just a backdrop to internet stardom, but it's probably not the case here. But yeah, so it's.
I do that while providing utility.
Yes, real utility. So you mentioned income, expenses, debts, and
Assets.
assets, of course. So assets and income seem relatively straightforward because you just see that going in. Debts, how are those calculated? Is that in terms of like if you do lending, like a collateralized loan on something like an Ether protocol or something like that, then it calculates how much you're actually owed to get your assets back out, et cetera?
Yeah, exactly. So we like the prototypical example of a DeFi protocol with debts is Aave. It's the biggest borrowing and lending market on Ethereum. So yeah, if you've borrowed on Aave, we'll keep track of that, the amount of the debt and what it's costing you in repaying. Another way people use debts on iYield is that they just manually. So I should say we also support fiat currency things, but generally your fiat stuff, it's not going to be automatic. You just kind of enter it manually, a bit like a spreadsheet, I guess. going back to spreadsheets. So people will just say, I have a mortgage, and they put in the amount of the mortgage and the amount of their repayments, and it's tracked that way. So you can also have manual debts, or we support protocols that have debts automatically.
Yeah. And so for the expenses, how does that part work?
Yeah, usually those will be manual. You can have, the cool thing is you can attach expenses to assets. So like I used to host my Dash master nodes on all nodes, and if I was just getting the return on the master node, it might tell me 7%, but actually I was paying $20 a month to all nodes as the hosting fee. So on iYield, I could enter that as an expense, link it to the Dash master node, and then it would correctly tell me that my actual return is 6.4%. Which no other platform gives you that kind of accuracy and that kind of control. And then you can also just put in your regular non-crypto expenses, like your rent, your child support, whatever it may be. So you can keep track of if you're saving over time or actually outspending yourself.
Yeah, which is very important if you got if you have pure crypto income, and you got to make that work. Now, one question: so the precision of this kind of accounting is something that makes a lot of sense from like a tax kind of perspective, especially where I'm sure a lot of crypto degens aren't super careful to watch exactly what they make and what they don't make for their own edification. But if they do have to pay taxes on it, then that's when you have to be super clear on that kind of stuff. So do you do any sorts of report generation for tax purposes?
Not directly, explicitly for tax purposes. And the main reason is taxes are so jurisdiction specific. As in any report that might work for a US person wouldn't work for an Australian person, or vice versa, and for a British person or a Singaporean person, or it would have to. It's too location specific. But I can definitely help you to do your taxes. Like one great feature we have is the historical data on your asset, so you can see what the value of it was when you put it into iYield. You can see what the value was if you sold along the way. You can see what the values were when you sold. So iYield can help you do your taxes. We don't have an explicit tax feature because it would be too country specific. But we do have a lot of data and numbers in there that can help you to do your taxes.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about adding like some sort of a plug-in functionality of some kind where you get to maybe, and this would definitely, I'm sure, be a paid option. It wouldn't be part of the free version, but to sort of add a country in kind of tax framework where you have like the USA module, you have the Australian module, whatever, and then it will calculate kind of what you owe and be able to do some sort of an automated report, or can also do a sort of automated projection that would basically allow you to say, okay, you should make sure like it'll cost you this much if you decide to liquidate right now. You should hold this specific asset. You guys should hold on for another couple of years, and you get into a different category and those kinds of things. Like automate all that kind of stuff, so you don't have to basically automate a tax accountant who, to a certain extent, who most of them are very not up to date into the intricacies of crypto and DeFi?
Yeah, it must be a good question because everybody asks me. So it must be you must be onto something. Yeah, when you said plugin, the first thing I thought of is if we could make it open to like community plugins somehow, where someone could develop a plugin and interface with iYield. Yeah, I mean, I know there's a handful of crypto tax accounting products on the market. I haven't looked into them, but maybe we could integrate iYield with an existing like crypto tax kind of calculator. Or exactly what you said is certainly possible. We just haven't discussed it much yet.
Yeah, that could be very useful to some people. I'm just trying to think about the whole holistic picture of like using crypto broadly.
If you had I wonder the experience of using some of these crypto tax planning products. I'm imagining you open it up and it asks you for all this kind of information, and then it spits out your how much tax you're supposed to owe. I'm just imagining that you can get all that information it asks you for quite easily from your iYield account. Whereas if you didn't have iYield, it would actually be very difficult to even gather those pieces of information.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, one thing that I know is something that sort of popped into my head, but also for the day job, I did an AMA about this, and one of the Dash community members mentioned his first question was regarding privacy and reporting. So, what kind of privacy setup is there for users? And what data gets collected about what users and held on to? And is there any kind of like reporting to maybe authorities or something? Because I know that that's something that some people are paranoid about. Maybe they got a significant crypto stack before there was any kind of reporting threshold or anything, or any kind of like framework, and now they're kind of scared of like, the mystery whale, getting in trouble for whatever. And so I'm sure that might cause some people to be a little bit paranoid.
Yeah, there's no concerns about anything like that. So the privacy and security, it starts with anonymity. So iYield's an anonymous service. We don't ask for your identity. We don't want to know your real name or anything like that. You can sign up with with your Web3 wallet, or with an email address, or with a Google account, or with a Discord. None of which need to be in any way linked to your real identity. And we don't do any of that information sharing type of thing you mentioned, and it wouldn't make sense. Like, we would never even get a request because anyone can put any address into iYield. It doesn't even mean it's your money. So we would be sharing. It would be considered junk data.
Yeah.
So no, there's nothing like that. Like I said, it starts with anonymity. We don't sell or share data with anybody. Please have a read of our terms of service and privacy policy on the website if you have detailed concerns. But we never. iYield never holds your crypto. iYield never does transactions on your behalf or anything like that.
Yeah, that definitely makes things a lot better. One thing I think is interesting is about tracking, other people, which is probably it's probably the last thing that most people would think about doing. But I do know that every once in a while, when you're looking at blockchains or moving of funds or things like that, you start to identify like, oh, this whale here. And it would be very funny to see, just on a humorous side, like find like some jealous hater whale that you're going to track his stuff and be like, oh, he's making more than me, god damn it. Or on a little bit more of a data side, it would be interesting to see if someone were to do like a crawler of basically analyze all major addresses in a certain crypto ecosystem, use some sort of like grouping analysis to try to identify single entities and put them on iYield, and just kind of like, for academic purposes, say, okay, well, this one's making this much, this one's making this much, and then just draw market data from the whole. That might be another interesting, and that's something you would probably want the pro plan for, because if you're implementing like thousands of different addresses and stuff, Maybe a university would do something like that. That could be interesting.
Yeah, it's not something I'm very familiar with, but one thing we do for fun is you can put Vitalik's address into iYield, and then you can see all of Vitalik's holding, which is interesting because he gets automatically given a lot of crap. That, like, it doesn't mean that he went just because Vitalik has it in Vitalik's wallet. Doesn't mean that he's actually gone out and got it. It's mostly being given to him. But then you can see things that he's held for a long time. You can, if there's an interesting public address, you can put it on iYield and see what's in it.
Yeah, that is kind of funny about the price of celebrity. Obviously, has something to do with if people know you are a famous person, have a lot of money, you, I'm sure, have to hire personal security of some kind. But on the other side, people give you free things. So that would be very fun to see if someone were to calculate Vitalik's lifetime earnings from just random people throwing money at him because he's a celebrity.
Yeah, I think it would also be interesting to calculate how much would that be worth if he sold it as soon as he got it, compared to how much would that be worth if he kept everything until today.
Yeah,
Because the sold it to you got it, you'd make a little bit off everything, but if you kept everything, you'd have that one or two thing that 100x'd.
yes.
So that would probably be worth more that way. Yeah.
Although maybe, depends on, I don't really know the psychology behind giving a random stranger money that they didn't ask for, but I would almost assume the opposite, where people are dumping their tokens. Oh, look, Vitalik's got some, and then they go to zero. And so if you sold it right then, you'd make the money. Whereas long term, almost nothing that you'd just throw at a celebrity like that is going to be a serious project that pans out. So,
Yeah, no, I think that's right. It would be interesting to run the numbers.
Yes, it'd be interesting to run numbers, and if they consistently say one thing and then an anomaly happens, and all of a sudden, on the average, it turns the opposite way.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so do you have any trends or things that you've noticed other than the too few people actually in DeFi that we'll go back to from obviously the analysis of all this? Is there anything like, for example, are they mostly whales that would use a service like this? Do you have like minnows don't even bother with some things, or sometimes whales are more careless, and then whereas minnows are a little bit more like making sure they get the maximum yield out of their 400 sats worth of whatever. Have you noticed any kind of greater trends or wisdom from watching hodlers?
Well, just the first thing that comes to mind is nobody wants to do their own staking. Everyone wants a liquid staking token. Because, like I said, I developed iYield before Ethereum validated withdrawals. So I had all these validators, and I made all these features in iYield to support solo validators and to keep track of validator earnings. And recently my developer told me we have approximately one user who has an Ethereum validator. Wow. And obviously we have thousands who have liquid staking tokens. So liquid is the way to go. Don't make a new protocol that relies on validators. Just do the validators yourself and then make a liquid staking token, I guess. So ease of use. One thing that's popular in iYield that's underreported in the ecosystem is these automatic DeFi vaults. So things like EtherFi, Liquid ETH, and Sommelier products, and Tokemak now. You can go to the iYield homepage to see what we support. But there are ones where you just make a deposit into a vault, and then that vault will deploy your Ethereum across DeFi, and it will. It started out with yield optimizers, and you'd make a deposit, and it would automatically put it into one DeFi strategy, and it would automatically do the redepositing to make sure you compound your yield, and it would do that in a way where you'd pay less fees and stuff. But then the next evolution of that was the same thing, but multiple DeFi strategies from one deposit. And those are things that I'm finding interesting that I'm looking into now. They really help with the ease of use and with the lowering fees. There's one from Tokemak now where it's just liquidity providing at different different Ethereum dexes, but it automatically rebalances based on wherever the yield's better. But it has a really clever way of doing its rebalances based on projected future yields, looking at the market balances and where the liquidity depth is deep or shallow. So these are things that used to be really difficult to do that are now easy to do thanks to these DeFi vaults. That's something that we're seeing more people use on iYield.
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating just how far the space has come on that. I do remember as also a kind of an OG crypto person, in the early days, it was all about mining. And I do remember when people were still mining Bitcoin on their laptops and stuff like that. And then with the big, 2013 era shitcoin boom, I guess, where everyone was making a mostly proof of work, like fork of Bitcoin type thing, and mining it all. Like everyone's about mining, and I remember the conversation is always about mining. And
wasn't it script merge mining, and script mining the Litecoin one? But
yes.
Most of the forks would use script mining, and then you could do merge mining, so your hash power could be automatically changed to whoever had the
collect all these random tokens from mining. And then it became the ICO era where people were just buying ICOs or having random airdrops from ICOs and things. And then we go to the NFT era and then DeFi. And it's
such a shame that the US legislation basically killed the ICO era, because the idea was actually to give people real ownership of the protocol.
Yeah.
Even Reddit wanted to give people real ownership of Reddit, but of course the lawyers said no. The lawyers said no because because of the US security laws. So, but the ICOs was such a good idea, but you couldn't give real ownership, so you had to give fake ownership, and then it just gets more and more thin from there.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, there's a lot of things that would not be legal in the U.S., like the way the U.S. is structured, that I think are some of the most fascinating use cases of crypto. Like one of the things I like the most about the Maya protocol, which for the most part is a perfect fork of Thorchain that just supports a few different chains, is there's two major tokenomic differences, and one is that their nodes are liquidity unit bonded, where they don't have a single asset that's running nodes, so it's more capital efficient. But the big thing is they have something called the Maya token, which is literally like a securities token. It's like an investment token, which holders of the Maya token get 10% of the transaction fees on the network. And so if you just wanted to invest in Maya as an enterprise, you just buy some Maya tokens and then just sit on them, and you get the yield from the revenue. And I know a lot of people at Thorchain, for example, are complaining about the providing liquidity because they don't want exposure to the other asset. They just want Rune exposure and to earn from the Rune exposure. And it's like, well, that would work just fine. The problem is the Thorchain team, there's a lot of them that are in the US and that are doxxed, and the Maya team is completely outside of the US as far as I know, and don't have bank accounts. So there you go.
Yeah, there's so many forces, like centralizing forces in terms of liquidity and convenience that may be driving everyone to the Ethereum ecosystem at the moment. But yeah, cross chain swaps are huge. Could be a huge piece of it. I was an early liquidity provider on Thorchain when it was really, really difficult to use and really clunky. I remember you would put in a transaction and then the only way you could keep your sanity is take your dog for a walk and come back and hope that the transaction had settled by the time you came back, because there was just no knowing what was going to happen when you when you press the button. And,
for sure.
I wanted Bitcoin on Bitcoin returns, so the best I could do at the time was get in the Bitcoin Rune pool, where I was getting all these Bitcoin and Rune rewards, and it's just a lack of timing that it was totally worked against me during that time. I think the Bitcoin price went up and the Rune price went down, which was whatever it was. It was the opposite of what I wanted, where I was essentially selling Bitcoin to buy Rune. Automatically the position would sell Bitcoin to buy Rune to keep the liquidity pool balanced, which was the opposite of what I wanted. And then they made a big change to the kind of economics of the pools without really that I didn't agree with. And we know the kind of dash voting system, and how we used to have a lot of contentious, nearly 50% votes. But when you look at Thorchain in the early days, anything that the team proposed would get passed with 99% or 100%. And most DAOs are like that now. And they say it's like
a rubber stamp.
Yeah, they say it's like a competitive, governance process, but anything that the team proposes always gets passed at almost 100%.
Yeah,
that's what happened to this change on Thorchain, which I didn't want to happen. So yeah, that's kind of why I left.
Yeah, for sure, and that's something that definitely happens a lot in crypto. I think that in the 2013 era, especially, every project paid some sort of a lip service to decentralization, even if they were structurally owned by the founder, run kind of by the founder. If that came out, that was a scandal. And then I feel like today, as long as it runs on a publicly accessible blockchain, any level of centralization is sort of just like so.
Yeah, I call it decentralization theater.
Yeah, well, that's 2013. 2013 was the theater. Now they don't have theater anymore. They just don't have it.
But remember on Dash, we used to be watching right down to the deadline, and then one whale would take a proposal from like 45% to 53%. I don't see that in anywhere else.
Yeah, the whale voting games.
Yeah, and what's his name used to always analyze people's voting, and I always used to laugh because he always used to get mine wrong. He always used to analyze my motivations for voting.
Would that be XK?
Yes, of course.
well, and by the way, all this is like relatively public stuff. So it's not internal gossip. But there is a site called MNO Watch, and I don't know if you're familiar with, because it's relatively recent, but it's been doing a lot of interesting stuff and analysis, and so I know usually is pretty accurate. There are some things, as far as as like you mentioned, there are some things that are gotten wrong, but it's I kind of like that it's like it shows that the pseudonymity is enough to sort of throw off complete perfect analysis.
Yeah, I had dozens of masternodes, and I used to just vote for whatever I felt like whenever I felt like it, and then there was all this talk in the Discord of this that I was like manipulating. I was like rigging the votes and manipulating the outcomes, and I pretended. I guess probably once I switched my votes, and but it was actually because I actually just changed my mind. But then I was like, oh, this guy, he's tried to give the appearance that it's going to easily pass, and then he made it fail at the last minute. This guy's ripping us off or whatever. It's just because I saw one of your podcasts and I changed my mind.
Yeah, everyone wants to see like 4D chess or something into this when it turns out it's just that like people change.
Actually, I was just hungover.
Occam's razor. So we mentioned before about the no users of DeFi kind of thing. And with crypto, that's kind of a thing as a whole, right? Where you have, first off, there seems to be no shortage. There's always a shortage of developers, but as far as for what you want, if you want, you always need more developers. But as far as there's tons of developers in crypto, it's extremely developer heavy, which I'm assuming is a good sign for a nascent sort of a industry, right? That doesn't really exist. People are building tech. They don't really know how it's going to be used yet. And there's a ton of speculators, of course. First of all, with the DeFi thing, you mentioned some of these issues that would prevent regular people, like the masses, retail maybe, from coming and using it. One thing you mentioned is the yields are a little bit wonky, like extremely high and then not high and not predictable. Do you think a lot of that is because the yields themselves run on speculation and not really on pure utility yet?
Yeah, there's that, and there's also the fact that the yields are often artificially boosted as a way to promote the protocol, and then the boosting finishes at some point, or it can go the other way too. Like they could be boosting a set amount of their governance token, and then that protocol actually gains traction and gets really good news, and now that same governance token is now worth a lot more, and the yield goes up. But it could also happen that the same thing happens, or the opposite thing happens, and the yield goes down because the yields are boosted. So yields are boosted, which is variable. Maybe things are supported by a very small number of whales. Maybe one of the whales leaves, and all of a sudden there's no more revenue in that model anymore. And there's just the value of, see, in Ethereum, we're talking, a lot of this is around points, basically getting points from the protocols, right? So that's even more speculative than actual tokens and actual crypto, is the value of these points, and that's what can do it. One way which iYield can help you is, at least iYield will show you your yield from your different sources in a consistent calculation, with a consistent manner. Like when I used to get my Dash masternode yield from all nodes, it didn't actually tell you the yield of your masternode. It would tell you the average yield from masternodes with your configuration. Yeah, and then you'd go to then you go to the Thorchain dashboard to get your Thorchain LP yield, and that was using a 7-day lookback. And then I'd go to the Beacon chain to get my Ethereum validator yield, and that was using a 30-day lookback. So there's no way to compare, and that's a good thing that iYield does. At least you can compare the yield you're getting using a consistent formula, a consistent calculation. So you're actually comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, for sure. And I think especially Bitcoin has had very strong price performance over its life cycle, and so far, and probably still for a little while longer. And a lot of times it's compared against assets that offer some sort of a yield. And I'm sure it could also be very useful to sort of compare the life cycle of both of those, whereas you have the same amount of Bitcoin that you paid for or you got from wherever, whereas you have more units of these random tokens for the other coin that might not have done as well, but we'll see what happens with the units are accounted for, et cetera. So it could be very useful on that.
Yeah, spot on. Using that historical kind of look back charts we have.
Yeah, it could be very instructive. So we've seen kind of like crypto's been in never-ending fountain of activity kind of for the last 15 years. It's been growing like crazy, and it's come from this random like nerd money that some people use to buy illicit things on the dark web or whatever, probably still do. And there's a very real case that the crypto issue could have decided the presidency of the US this last time. And it's not like a fringe theory. I would say it's like 50-50 if that was a key deciding factor. And so we come all there, and still so few people use it. Now, first of all, like, do you expect, like, the payments use case, right, is something that I think because everyone pays in real life for things. And the original proposition that got people excited was kind of something like that for Bitcoin. And like conventional wisdom says that that's going to be valuable. But then if you want to talk about all the projects that have explicitly focused on facilitating peer-to-peer payments, especially, speculatively, they have not done super well. As far as speculators have increasingly gone to other things. Why do you think that is?
I mean, one popular theory, it doesn't ring true to me, but I'm not a typical user, is that people don't like to use volatile assets to buy and sell goods and services. People want stable assets. People want to, because of course you need. I agree. You need the stable asset to price things in, but then I never had a problem paying for something that was priced in a stable asset with my Dash and just letting the conversion happen at the point of sale. Mm-hmm. But I guess maybe a lot of other people do find that a problem, that conversion that has to happen at the point of sale. So maybe retail will we'll need stablecoins. And then, I mean, yeah, there's that theory that to replace an entrenched technology, you have to be 10 times better. And maybe for a lot of people, especially a lot of people with not much technical ability that don't have your and I's philosophical buy-in or political buy-in or our own personal lives and careers bought in.
Yeah, of course.
For them, there's no 10x, there's not a 10x improvement. I mean, in the US, you use your credit card, they actually pay you to buy stuff with your points and your rebates. In Asia, we all pay for things from our phone, from our online banking app and our online wallets on our phones, and it's easier than crypto. When I first got into crypto in Australia, and at the time, using Dash was actually easier than using the banks. Now the difficulty of using crypto has stayed about the same. It's about as difficult now as it was then, but using fiat currency has actually gotten a lot easier in the time, basically because of apps. So a lot of places I live in Thailand now. A lot of places don't accept cash anymore. You have to use your phone, and so whatever else you might say about that, it is really easy.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no 10x. There's no 10x improvement using crypto in retail. If you're in the US and you're not used to using credit card, if you're in Asia and you're using your phone, there's no 10x improvement. The 10x you get is if you hold the crypto, you get more wealthy over time. But that's not a retail specific thing. That's a speculation. That's a speculation use case, not a bricks and mortar retail kind of narrative.
Yeah. And so do you think that at some point the speculative bubble the bottom is going to fall out of the whole space when just the people stop speculating so heavily on things to where now like the one thing that you do with tokens and coins and things is you have them and they go up. And at some point they won't just kind of go up anymore. And then you'll sort of have to do something else. Or do you think it's just like a constant thing for the future?
Certainly don't see it ending in the short to medium term. I mean, because the technology will keep improving. There'll keep being these success stories. There's an endless number of narratives that you could use to make the number go up. We've gone from, like you said, the kind of blockchain is a libertarian going to save the world narrative when we got into it, to ICO narrative, to NFT narrative, to DeFi narrative, to crypto plus AI narrative, to crypto. The next one will be crypto and quantum computing narrative. There's always going to be the technology is going to be improving. There's always going to be some projects that do go to the moon. Every year there's a few projects that go to the moon, and people who speculated on them make a fortune. So people are never going to not want to make money. People are never going to not want to. Gambling doesn't get any less popular.
Yeah, of course.
Gambling is like a fundamental human activity. Since people could count, they've been gambling, right? So no, I don't see it ending. I see more things maybe getting built on top of it. Like you have, well, it's interesting. I was going to say you have the speculation, the number go up, and then you're going to have the utility like yield, and then you're going to have the utility like you can use it to buy and sell anything, and then you'll have the utility that will be added by some AI technology. So actually, it will just get better and better when you'll still have the speculation, but you'll have more utility on top of it. But there's actually a counter narrative to that, in that some people are saying you're better off, like the meme coin craze. Another narrative, one of that I didn't list. The meme coin narrative says that you're better off not having any utility. That utilities are a limiting factor. All you should have is the speculation, and the utility is the community fun factor, maybe.
Yeah, although it's kind of, I mean, there's an argument to be made that any kind of gambling type thing has utility, which is fun. People do it because it's fun, and they
Entertainment.
like the idea that they could make it rich, and even if they don't, they just the thrill of the try. Even if they don't get depressed and when they get wrecked, it's just like, oh, I could dream in this little thing, and that's fun.
But then let's say a question is the crypto version of that. How much widespread appeal does the crypto version of that have? And maybe going back to our point about DeFi not having enough users, and Dash not having enough users, and Maya not having enough users, maybe we're seeing that the crypto version of that gambling doesn't have a very widespread appeal. But I'm still bullish because I still think we're going to add utility on top of the speculation part.
Well, here's an interesting kind of debate thing that kind of came up today. Someone was making the point that, no one wants privacy. Privacy's gone. Like, there's no money in it. And kind of as evidence of that, showing any project that is focused deeply on privacy has just not performed super well. And especially compared to like the top coins, it's not really, there's not really any in the pack.
Or compared to Shiba Inu and
and on the counter to that, then the Railgun contract on Ethereum is pulling in the DAO itself, not even counting what the Ethereum validators are making for running the contract, is making over 300,000 a month, just pulling in some massive, and literally all they do is they make Ethereum private. And so maybe it's a case where you have that kind of a thing, where, as you mentioned, the utility on top of speculation or speculation on top of utility, like probably why Railgun is doing so much better than, let's just say, a Zcash or a Monero, is probably because people are doing their degen nonsense on Ethereum, and it makes it private. So it's like a utility built on top of the speculation, instead of just the pure-hearted, I'm going to go use your space age technology so no one can see that I bought a coffee kind of thing.
Yeah. The only, I guess I'm feeling pessimistic. The only pessimistic note I add is that Railgun probably is supported by a small number of whales rather than a large groundswell of tens of thousands of users.
Well, for sure, that is definitely easier to service, right? Is a few whales rather than
who values crypto is people who doing very large. Who values that privacy as people who are doing very large transactions.
Yeah, it becomes a lot more important. Yeah, so maybe I guess the narrative that I've sort of seen pop up through this whole thing, other than utility and speculation, do go hand in hand in some cases, is it's a game of whales and we're just in it, right? It's it's almost
if you want to dig into that, like I said, I put my hands up. I'm a whale. So, and I used if we want to dig into the differences or what it's like, I'm here. People can always ask me about it.
Yeah. And so it is kind of funny because I'm sure there's lots of legacy kind of analog businesses that have a heavy kind of whale presence as far as like their customers. But on the other hand, there is the mass kind of thing. Whereas if you there are no whale coffee shop customers, right? There's just only so much you could spend at a coffee shop. You just have to get volume through. And then same thing is like a toll booth. It's not the one rich guy who goes through you free some for a few grand every time he goes through. It doesn't work that way. You have to get several dollars after several dollars over and over again. Now, so the kind of counterpoint to that, maybe it's not a counterpoint because I think you're like 100% right. It's just maybe there's this too. Solana seems to be one of the first sort of retail cryptos, as far as my younger sister-in-law reached out to me. It was just like, what is Solana? I'm like, oh no, like what is it now? And it's just like, some friend of mine's.
That's not that bad. I offered to pay my kid's nanny in crypto, and she said, yes, in Shiba Inu, please.
Oh, wow.
Well, she's a totally non-technical person.
That's a Shiba Inu
on Solana or Ethereum?
I think it's Ethereum. I think that was before.
Yeah, I think it is too. It was before Solana. But that does just remind me of something when you were talking about the crypto and retail. I forget the guy's name from Solana. Not a big fan, but he says money is what you pay your coffee in, and that's why people don't see crypto as money because of the volatility. So people don't see Ethereum as money because that's not what you pay your coffee in. It's not what you buy. It's not what you buy your coffee in. Sorry. So his quote was, "Money is what you buy your coffee in." If that's the case, then like his point is Bitcoin's not money, Ethereum's not money, USDT is money, or USDC is money.
Yeah, I mean, overwhelmingly, that does seem to be the case where stablecoins are doing very well. Just a few days ago, I interviewed Sergey Kotliar, the Bitrefill founder, and he's always a wealth of honesty and information on the payment space because literally his 70-plus employee company runs entirely off of people actually trying to live on crypto. And so he's definitely has a different perspective, but it's kind of the stable coins are eating everyone's lunch these days. And I guess maybe that'll be like my last like question on that about perspective is clearly people are paying with stuff, and largely when it's crypto, it's dollars that they're using, cryptoified dollars. Do you think that's just the way things are going to go, that crypto will be mass adopted at some point in the near future as a payments method, but it will be purely through stablecoins and that's just the way it's going to go? Or do you think stablecoins in their own way are a bubble in that they are basically the evolution of fiat, and eventually they're going to start to have the baggage of fiat in terms of censorability, barriers? You can't gamble with them anymore because that's banned in the contract or whatever. It won't let you go to these sites, and then confiscatable, and then people will, it just, stablecoins had their era, but then scarce crypto will then be back in the thing. Which kind of way do you see it going?
Well, I think the second, the latter, the anti-stablecoin thing, but that's purely personal. And there's, for every one of me, there's 10,000 people who are more interested in stable crypto, and they're not wrong. Then they can't be wrong. The market's never wrong, right? So I'm personally not interested in stables for that reason. Let me just say, I didn't become a whale by having stables. I became a whale by holding crypto while it 10x'd and 100x'd. So and I'm not going to get off that train. But that's a whale's perspective, and that's someone, like I said, who's bought into the philosophy and the politics and the technology and has made my career in it. So there's no reason in the short and midterm why the rise of stables would stop. There's no, that the only reason it will happen, even in that second version you said, where you start out with an anti-stable perspective, it takes a crisis, and so does I guess maybe that's an add-on to the idea that new technology only gets adopted if it's 10 times better than the old one. So one thing that can make
the old one does it 10 times dive.
Yeah, exactly. A crisis. Yeah, that gives the 10 times effect. If there's a crisis in your local crypto, if there's a crisis in your local fiat, then crypto is 10 times better. But let's not pretend that our cryptos are immune to crises either, right? So, so it's not like your decentralized crypto thing has never made anyone lose all their money. Probably happens, to be frank, it probably happens more often than a fiat, bank run make all the fiat holders lose all their money. It probably happens more often in crypto, but to a smaller number of people, but to a higher percentage of people in that ecosystem, maybe. So it kind of swings and roundabouts. It's kind of whatever makes sense to every individual. So the only thing that would stop the rise of stablecoins would be a big crisis. I mean, the demand for US dollars isn't going away. As Andreas Antonopoulos used to say, the US dollar will actually be the last fiat standing. Before you expect the US dollar to fall, you'd have to see 100 smaller, weaker fiats with less demand would fall first, right? Yeah. So, and this is very long-term stuff. Even that kind of anti-stablecoin kind of position that you laid out, that's very long-term stuff. So yeah, it's in the medium term, it's stablecoins are going to stay on the march. But that doesn't mean I'm going to have anything to do with them because I don't have a use for them.
Yeah, it is interesting, especially the dominance of the dollar concept, because I would argue that stablecoins have only increased the dollar's dominance because, first of all, the crypto community is global and there's no barriers to sending it anywhere. So you don't have to be like, well, my bank only takes internal, your wallet takes anything. And then that means that if I would consider like the percentage of wealth around the world, and then the percentage of wealth in that stuff, stablecoin wealth that's in the local currency is like tiny compared to, it's all in US dollars, all US something or other. And then the Europeans have to have their euro, you tether euro just for like, to say they have one, but they probably all, I do know that I paid a European company today in USDT on Tron. So
on Tron, yep.
Yes, that's probably the signal there.
Yeah, it's all interesting stuff. I mean, New Hampshire was one of the beacons for Dash retail adoption. I mean, I wonder how much of that was based on the personal, efforts of like a dozen guys.
Yeah, probably true. And also, how does that relate to the rest of crypto? As far as how much of crypto is just a dozen guys. There we go back to the whales, whether it's a dozen devs or a dozen whales. It's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, so, maybe it's a short-term view, but like what's catching on now is meme coins. The kids on TikTok, they like to own a funny meme coin. And they're gambling. What they're doing is gambling on it. The value will go up, and they'll have fun in the meantime with the community and the catchphrases and stuff. I mean, we can't look down at them, but it's I don't think it's a long-term thing, but
yeah, for sure. Well, this has been quite the enlightening chat. Where would you direct people to, follow you, etc.? I'm sure, apart from the iYield type accounts, do you have any personal social media or anything like that?
It all starts at iYield.com. You could get to my personal stuff by going to iYield and then going to the blog, and then if you see a post written by me, that'll link to my socials. But do go to iYield.com. That's much more interesting than following one random idiot. iYield.com. Just the last couple of things about iYield. It's to emphasize, it's free. You can try with a guest account where there'll be like some dummy data in the space. So yeah, go sign up on iYield. A couple of things we didn't mention. You have multiple spaces, so you can you can segregate your funds into multiple different spaces, which you could have like your real finances, and then have another space for experimenting. Because like we said, how you can maybe you have both Dash masternodes and Ethereum validators, and you thought, what if you went all masternodes? You can set up your real finances with the half, then you can copy that into an experimental space and change it to all masternodes. And you could then make another copy from your real finance space and change it to all Ethereum validators, and then you could check back a year later. You would have had which one would have had more money. So you can do experimental spaces, or you could have one space for your degening and one space for your serious, like your kids' college fund and stuff like that. Lots of features. It's really the best product on the market. It's the first crypto financial planning tool, and the only similar products are the pro versions of some of the portfolio tracking type things, and they're like $30 a month. Whereas iYield got more features and for free.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Yeah, well, thanks for being on. This has been a lightning chat, and I'm sure people will enjoy all the chat. Everyone check out iYield and follow everything that James has posted on there. Thanks for being on, and everyone, thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me, Joel. It's been great.